Let's face reality. Venezuela is having the same problem. Actually, the whole South America is having the same problem that Africa is having. What is the problem? Unification. The problem between Venezuela and the United States is the same issue everyone across the world is having, especially Africa, is unity. If you don't unify, you cannot stand. Thank you for joining us. We want to talk about Venezuela and the kidnap of the Venezuelan president. Let's talk. Before I go any further into the talking, I want to bring your attention to the South American map, which I'll put somewhere on the screen. And I want to shape it this way. You have Venezuela, you got Colombia, you got Ecuador, you got Peru. I'm shaping it that way. And if you put 1, 2, 3, 4, just those 4 countries, if they were to be seen eye to eye and unified, those countries alone have more resources in terms of oil, water, and different, more than the whole United States. But the problem with the South America, the problem with the Africa, is the lack of unity and political will. And why is that? Because everyone wants to eat. They and their family are the one eating, and then the rest of the countries are suffering. If you look at how poor the people is in South America, excluding Brazil, because Brazil is a vast area, those 4 could have the same economy as Brazil, and that would make that region a real powerhouse. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm not adding Chile, and I'm not adding in Bolivia. I'm just putting the 4 together. Include 1, 2, 3, 4. Put in this 4. Venezuela, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru. Imagine if they add in Bolivia, Paraguay. I won't add in Paraguay in there because I can't see the possibilities. So I would say 5. But if you don't want to use the 5, we start with 4. Venezuela, Colombia, Ecuador, and Peru. I am sure those 4 could sit down and reason and come up with a kind of rotation. You see what happened with these political people who say them bright? Then yes, them bright, them go to school, but them not have no common sense. If you want to say your people rise out of the quagmire and the dust and stand on equal footing to certain people, you have to unify. And this message is not just for South America, it's for the continent of Africa. The continent of Africa have the same problem, and that's why we keep on seeing things moving the way they're moving, and people look poor, and they show, I know there's rich people there, but they only show the poor ones, and the reason is majority of the people is poor. Why? Because the lack of unity. How can you have someone, you send them to do a deal, one country like Rwanda or even Uganda, you send them to do a deal with the United States, or you send them to do a deal with China? It can't be a good deal. So when you really check the kidnap of the president of Venezuela, we should see the reality that until we come together as a people, I want to include Central America into the fold. And the reason why I said Central America, that's the region that I'm from. They call it the Caribbean, but there's no such thing as the Caribbean. The islands that they call the Caribbean is actually Central America. So we are part of the American continent. You got the continent of North America, continent of South America, or the continent of North America, and the continent of South and Central America. We are in the continent of South and Central America. So we also should look into what is happening and sit down and have a reason. Actually, I saw the Bajan Prime Minister is the only one I see so far come out and really condemn this act, illegal act. It doesn't matter how illegal the person is in terms of, you say, him not the right president. You should not have a right to go into a country, a sovereign country, and remove the president the way they went in and removed the president. It's sure that the country is also locked in security. It's also locked in self-defense. If you can remove the president like that, you can do anything. And we should take note of this. Africa, the Caribbean, and the rest of the South America, that you are not safe. If the piper don't blow the horn the right way, or you don't dance to the piper music, then you can be removed at any time. Every president and prime minister in the East Africa region, every president and prime minister, whatsoever is in West Africa, every primary president across the whole continent, if they can remove a president. So look, Venezuela is a big country. If you can remove a president from Venezuela, that's all. They can remove you from, anywhere you is. It is not an island. It's not Jamaica. Venezuela is a big country. So I want to just call your attention to what is really happening in terms of United States hegemony and how they stand as so-called world police. But it's not world police, it's world mafia. Because this is not capture. This is kidnap. Let's be real about that. I just come here today to talk to you about this topic because I've not been on here for a while. I'm giving YouTube. So if you have not seen me here as regular as used to, once a week I'll do my herb tea program. So look out for that program once a week. Every Sunday at 2 p.m. we have the program called Herb Tea Sunday, where I will bring a different ingredients or a different type of tea for different purpose each Sunday, and that will be live. So it's every Sunday 2 p.m. UK time. Look out for that, and thank you for watching. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. We are on our way to 5,000 subscribers. That's the goal for this year. For this year, 2026, we are trying to target 5,000 subscribers. We are very close, so you can see that my goal is not too broad for this year. And then the following year, we'll try to add another 1,000. So we're just doing it, we're just taking it step by step. So I want to just confirm here that the act that the United States take against Venezuela and the Venezuelan president should be condemned across the board. I probably should play you a clip of the Bajan Prime Minister reaction. She's the only one I see so far in the region that came out and speak out against it. So let's go and listen to the Prime Minister of Barbados speaking about this event. Have a wonderful day.
are not naive, and we understand that where large powers contend, large powers very often will want to show testicular fortitude, and that testicular fortitude may have negative impact and implications for small countries such as ours. I wanted to say Happy New Year to each and every one of you, but the last 24 hours have proven to be exceedingly challenging, and it is important that we speak to the country to be able to ensure that on the multiple fronts that we have been affected in the last 24 hours, that we keep everyone up to date and to let people know that things are under control with respect to the consequences that we are now currently facing. It is fair to say that what we saw happen last night in Venezuela is uncharted territory. It is also fair to say that what we saw happen in Barbados last night must also become a thing of the past, and to that extent the law enforcement officers have also met with me, so that I am here for dual reasons today and not just one, but any one of the two would have been sufficient to bring me to address the people of this nation. With respect to the first matter, with respect to Venezuela's and what is happening in Caracas and broader Venezuela, about just around 3 o'clock this morning I was awoken, well, not even awoken because I really wasn't sleeping, and I saw that we were having difficulties, and from then was in contact with other colleague heads of government as well as the Secretary General of CARICOM, and we had an urgent heads meeting from which you would have seen a statement earlier today. That meeting took place just after 5 o'clock this morning, and at that stage we recognized it was too early a stage for us to make any defining comment. That is still the position, because as we speak, matters are unfolding every half hour to an hour. You are as aware of the statements being made by different players, from the President of the United States of America to the Secretary of State to others, just as we are. But where Barbados becomes affected is on a number of areas, and we would have said this previously, which is why we continue to assert that small states really can only survive in an international rules-based order. For us, we always said that conflict would have consequences, and many of you asked, what would those consequences be? What would they look like? Well, we're living them out today. With the actions taken in Venezuela, a number of disruptions took place, primarily with respect to our airspace, or planes coming from the US, I should say. There are 3 major areas in the region, Eastern and Southern Caribbean, and then one in Puerto Rico, 4 altogether in the Caribbean, that effectively manage the upper flight space. But as you would appreciate, Barbados is probably the biggest hub closest to Venezuela in terms of tourism, and therefore in terms of air flights and in terms of hotel accommodation and cruise accommodation, we would inevitably be affected.
Just a few questions from me quickly. I know you said it's still early days as it relates to our CARICOM position and statement. However, I am with hearing terms such as a reboot of the Monroe Doctrine coming back to play with this attack on Venezuela. What is Barbados' position on the actual event itself?
Let me be very clear, Colville. Venezuela is our friend. The United States of America is our friend. In fact, in both instances, we have family relations with both countries. By the same token, the Caribbean community has been the entity that we have chosen as a matter of first principles to align our foreign policy with. When the heads of government met this morning, all of the persons were not there because it was an emergency early meeting. We took a decision that we will wait for other information to become present. And when that happens, we will certainly act collectively, and I do not want in any way to prejudice the integrity of that consultative process with CARICOM. Having said that, I've been very clear that our principles are very, very clear, and that small states, and by small I don't only mean as small as Barbados, but much larger than Barbados, but still considered small. Small states can only survive in an international rules-based order, and that therefore anything that happens that runs contrary to that would be of grave concern to us as a people in Barbados, but equally as to the region. So without prejudice, I will await any further consultations on the specifics of this incident, but I just share with you the principles that mean a lot to us beyond the normal international law principles.
A follow-up question, Madam PM. You mentioned that basically, if no further escalation within Venezuela, the short-term impacts should likely pass quickly. What are the permutations as it relates to the potential long-term impacts on our tourism?
Well, we simply don't know. For me to speculate and to conjecture anything now would be just simply that, conjecture. Can't do it. I ask you to allow the events of the next few days to play out. There are perspectives as to what has transpired in Venezuela that I suspect will continue to play out in the next few days. So I do not think that we are in a position to offer any meaningful commentary at this stage. What I can say is that we're dealing with the consequences of the conflict. And the consequences of the conflict have been exceedingly disruptive to both of our ports of entry, the Grantley Adams International Airport and the Bridgetown Port. And to that extent, there are human realities because those disruptions have meant that people have been affected, and not only wealthy people visit our nation, so that there are some people who will not be able to take care of themselves in the circumstances. We're trying to get to the bottom of it, and between the rooms that remain from the BHTA as well as contingency plans that we have for other facilities, not just for today, but as you correctly said, should something happen again. President Trump did say that there may well be a second strike. We don't know. By the same token, we are hoping and praying that there will be a de-escalation of any such conflict, because, as I've said over and over, escalation and war, of conflict and war, does not serve anyone's interest. And Barbados has always held the position that where there can be dialogue, where there can be conversation, let us have it, and let us see where we can find a common place. The truth is that that is why the UN system also exists, and I fully anticipate that they too will have to have a ventilation of these issues. But at the same time, irrespective of wherever you started in this argument, and the perspective as to who was right and who was wrong and who is not right, let us end up today at 4 o'clock saying we pray for no further escalation. In fact, we pray for de-escalation and we pray for dialogue. Persons will feel justified in a show of force. Persons will feel justified that they are acting in accordance with their law. Others will argue that it is a complete breach of international law. Whatever it is, as of 4 o'clock this afternoon, we are saying, let us continue to call and pray for de-escalation and for the absence of conflict, because we are now facing firsthand how conflict can affect not just lives, but livelihoods in the southern and eastern Caribbean. And Barbados, to that extent, while we are not the closest to Venezuela, Guyana and Trinidad and Tobago are. Grenada and St. Vincent and Barbados are the next line of countries after Guyana and Trinidad and Tobago. But among those 5, Barbados probably has the biggest logistics hub for tourism. So you now begin to understand why I speak and why I have been speaking in the terms that I have, without necessarily getting in to matters that are too high for us.
Several countries calling for the UN Emergency Council
Security
to intervene.
Council.
Security Council to intervene. Do you support those calls, Prime Minister?
I've always said that where mature conversation can take place, it should take place. I am conscious that the United States has a view that they feel strongly about with respect to the impact on their citizens of the narco-trafficking war. As to whether this is the way to deal with it or not is capable of debate, for sure. At the same time, there are those who believe that this is, in fact, a blatant breach of the articles of the UN Charter. And to that extent, the one place that we should be having conversations, even if we accept the events of last night, our eyes are in the front of our head, not the back of our head. And therefore, the time for mature conversation is this evening and tomorrow. Quite frankly, I would have expected that the Security Council should have been meeting already to be able to ensure that there are at least guardrails put in place, even as we speak now, to ensure that there is no potential for this precedent to be abused in the future by other countries.